Now it is time to take a look at another Airbus A321XLR from Herpa Wings. No, I'm sorry. You are absolutely right. In my latest XLR review, let's call it like that, that was the very first XLR in Scale 500 featuring the Iberia livery. I dared to say that there's virtually no difference from the A321neo LR to the XLR, and that is of course not correct. There are some minor differences in how the airplane looks, mainly around the wing, and then the wing box is slightly longer or slightly different shaped on the XLR, and this is something Herpa has not taken into account. So while this is maybe not something I had put so much emphasis on, because it, honestly speaking, the wing box I really didn't know about, but it also really, the difference was so minor for me that it really didn't matter that much. But I take your point, and I do appreciate any feedback always, because I can't know everything, you can't know everything, so we can help each other out. I will take it into account in this review, and now let's take a look at this model, something we can do thanks to our great partner here on the channel, Jumbolino Model, who have reasonable prices with great service, and they are true collectors themselves, so do check them out. I can recommend them. You can find a link to them in the video description below. And with that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where we, despite of the controversy, will be looking at an Airbus A321XLR of Qantas. At the front of the box we have a cutout, so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside. On top of that we have the Qantas branding. Now, on the back side of the box, we unfortunately have yet another cutout. Yes, there is not much to be done with this type of box layout from Herpa Wings. What can they do? Not much. This is why they should change, and this is what they continue to refuse. So let's not waste more time with the box, and let's look at the model itself. And here she is, the Airbus A321XLR in the current standard livery of Qantas. I will get more into the topic of LR or XLR or Neo later in the video. For now, we just focus on the model at hand, how it is presented to us here in front of us. And what we have here in front of us is the very first Qantas Airbus A321, I believe, at least in the Neo variant, and for sure the very first XLR that of course was delivered this year to the airline. But what has Herpa done with this aircraft model? Let's find out. At the tail of the aircraft we find on the vertical stabilizer the iconic Qantas kangaroo or branding. On top of that we have the last two letters of the registration code. On the fuselage we then find the flag of Australia, we have the full registration code of the aircraft. Underneath all that we have the aircraft type specification. At the very tail of the aircraft we then also find a bit of detailing around the APU exhaust. Now, on top of the fuselage we find a set dome which does look fairly big, but when I compare it to images of the real aircraft, I think Herpa is right with this set dome for once. That's quite nice. Now, at the front of the aircraft and across the fuselage, we then find the writing of Qantas. Behind that, the company slogan, Spirit of Australia. Across the fuselage, we then also find a few more hatches or static ports. We, of course, also find the One World logo next to the cabin door, of which Qantas is a full member. And then underneath the cockpit windows, we find the kind of historic branding or logo of Qantas. There's some writing underneath that, which I think is the name of the aircraft, but please do let me know in the comment section below if I am wrong here. Apart from that, we of course here at the nose of the aircraft have another static port, and then of course we have the cockpit windows with the neo black mask around them and the window wipers. I do think that the neo black mask really does help out Herpa here, covering up the fairly inconsistent and weird shape of the cockpit section and the nose of the Airbus A320 family aircraft models, but that's of course a long-going issue I have with their models. So let's move on to the engines, where unfortunately I also have a bit of an issue. Now, firstly, they have been kept in all white, just as most of the fuselage. We have the silver leading edge printed on, as well as the Qantas branding. But where are the safety markings, Herpa? Why are you then suddenly skipping out on a detail that is, or should be, standard by now? Very, very strange. Less strange for me is the physical detailing overall, which I quite like with these engines from Herpa, especially here from the front. Very, very nice. You can see the engine fan blades. Moving on to the fuselage just above the wings, where we have the emergency exits printed on, and that leads us then straight to the wings. Taking a look here at the top side, where we can see the different flap slats and spoilers have been carved out quite nicely. We have some different shades of grey for additional detailing, and we have the markings for the emergency exits printed on. The underside of the wings gives us more nice physical detailing and the full registration code of the aircraft once again. And then of course the A321neo XLR also has these lovely winglets colored in with the Qantas red and branding or logo. Very nice looking, but unfortunately Herpa is super inconsistent with their winglets on the A320 family, so you do need to check every model individually. On this side I think it looks fine. On the other side, that could definitely be done better. And that is partially also the message for the landing gear. Not so much the main landing gear, that is of course the standard landing gear that Herpa uses for all the Airbus A320 family aircraft models. But unfortunately it's also the standard landing gear at the front landing gear, which is massively oversized and as always has no printed details. Still a shame that Herpa doesn't move on here. On the belly of the aircraft, they also are keeping up with traditions. We have the Qantas branding, or supposedly the Qantas branding, because of course Herpa has immediately destroyed it with a hole in the fuselage for a stand that is not included with this aircraft model. What a silly decision. Not so silly is the addition of the cargo doors that we find here on the aircraft model at the tail and also here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Airbus A321XLR in the standard livery of Qantas from Herpa Wings in scale 1 to 500. And what can we say about this aircraft model? Now, before we address the whole XLR or not XLR debate, let's just focus on the model itself, where I think Herpa has overall done a fairly decent job. The print quality, I think, is quite nice. I haven't really seen any smudges. Print lines is not going to be a major issue with this because it's mainly white, so it's difficult to actually add print lines here. We have clean edges, so yeah, that for me works quite well. The Qantas livery on the A321 looks really brilliant. I do like that. But I am disappointed with the missing safety markings on the engines. I really don't understand Herpa's inconsistency here because, yes, there will be some models which have more details than others, depending on price and stuff like that. But this is really a standard detail that should be on all models. That's what they announced it like, and so it makes no sense that it's not here. It should be there. In terms of physical detailing, there is no change. We have a weird cockpit shape, we have the oversized front landing gear, we have the way too flat wings, and of course the really dumb hole in the fuselage, which destroys the print for no apparent reason. So yeah, all that is quite a long list of things that should have been better, considering that the retail price is still 40 euros. But if you can live with that, then we can actually take a look at, is this actually an XLR or not? And of course you are right in pointing out that this is technically not an XLR. The difference is minor, but it is there. The wing box, which contains, for example, fuel tanks, is slightly longer, slightly different shaped at the back side. And that is something Herpa has not featured on this mold because they haven't changed the mold. There is also a slight change on the wings, also something they have not adjusted with this aircraft model. So technically what we have here in front of us is an Airbus A320neo or LR because they are virtually identical. I dared say it. Okay, but jokes aside, is this a major issue? Now, for me, it wasn't really, and I still don't think it is such a huge issue, but I can understand that people are upset because, of course, when you pay that amount of money, you want to have a true-to-scale die-cast model that actually reflects the features of the aircraft it is supposed to display, and that model does not. There is no speaking around that. It just doesn't really feature the XLR features. It's kind of the same story as Herpa did with the Jumbolino or Avro 185 model, where they actually just used the same mold of the Avro 100 for the Avro 100 and 85. With the 85, they simply adjusted the distance between the cabin windows to cover up that the fuselage was actually too long. Where I was quite upset with the Avro because it's my favorite aircraft type, I was more lenient with this, but I fully get anyone who is disappointed with Herpa here because they actually haven't put in the work they had to do in order to actually give us an XLR. Even worse, of course, is the typical thing of Herpa just not communicating about it at all. If they perhaps had been forward about this and saying, look guys, we would need to invest a lot of money in order to actually change the mold to an XLR, and we don't see this as a viable thing, at least for now, then customers would have had an opportunity to really decide whether they would like to put in their money and buy it or not. This way, people like me, who haven't done their research in this case, I guess, would buy the model and then get the disappointment afterwards, which I don't think is a good thing. Now, in any case, I hope I have now addressed this issue to your satisfaction. Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section down below. Let's keep the discussion going down there. And with that, we have reached the end of today's episode. If you have enjoyed this video, then feel free to leave a like. If you are new around here, why not hit subscribe? And with that, thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.